Welcome to the Deep Dive. This is where we take, well, stacks of sources really, pull out the key bits of information, and give you the ultimate shortcut to getting up to speed.
Mm-hmm.
Today, we're really immersing ourselves in the extraordinary career, nearly 7 decades, of John Mayall, the English musician, songwriter, producer, who sadly passed away recently in 2024, aged 90.
It's a massive story. And our mission really is to unpack the sources that detail this life. I mean, a life so central to rock history that, well, he's rightly called the Godfather of the British blues.
Yeah, that title feels absolutely earned.
And it's validated. You know, he was inducted into the Rock and Roll Hall of Fame just this year, 2024, specifically in the musical influence category. That category is key.
Right. It's not just about hits. It's about impact.
Exactly. It acknowledges his role as this, like, fundamental pillar holding up the whole structure of British blues and rock.
Absolutely. And when you look at that legacy, the main thing we need to explore, I think, is how Mayall functioned. He wasn't like a typical band leader just focused on his own fame.
Yeah.
He was more like, a human centrifuge, a constant deliberate catalyst for talent. And his main vehicle for that was John Mayall and the Bluesbreakers.
Yes. And while, the story often zooms in on the superstars he launched, and we'll definitely get to them, we have to start with his own talent. He was a master musician himself.
Oh, for sure. Great singer-songwriter.
And he played multiple instruments, right? Seamlessly moving between keyboards, guitar, and that harmonica sound, which is so iconic.
Mm-hmm.
So for you, the listener, really understanding Mayall and the Bluesbreakers, well, it's the essential shortcut. It's grasping the foundation for the whole British blues rock scene, how it formed and then, exploded globally.
That frames it perfectly. Okay, so let's start right at the beginning. Let's look at the blueprint for the man himself. John Bromwell Mayall, born in Macclesfield, Cheshire, 1933.
Right.
Grew up just south of Manchester in Cheadle. And it's important, I think, that his dad, Murray Mayall, was a guitarist. Played locally in pubs, so music was just there in the background from the start.
Yeah, that home environment kind of set the stage. Yeah. But his real musical spark, it seems, came from America.
Yeah.
Long before, the British invasion made American music trendy over here.
Right. He was ahead of the curve.
Definitely. From early on, Mayall was just drawn to the sound of American blues. He specifically mentioned people like Lead Belly.
A legend.
And the Boogie Woogie piano guys, Albert Ammons, Pinetop Smith, and even some early jazz guitar, like Eddie Lang.
Interesting mix.
And the crucial thing here, he was completely self-taught.
Yeah.
Painstakingly figured out piano, guitar, harmonica all by himself. That self-reliance, that drive, it absolutely defined how he ran his bands later.
You can see that thread running through. Now, his early life had this interesting detour. It delayed his music career a bit. National service, the military.
Right, including time in Korea.
And here's a great bit of trivia. He actually bought his first electric guitar while he was on leave in Japan. So that direct link between being abroad and starting his electric journey, it's right there.
But it wasn't straight into music after that, was it?
No, not immediately. He came back to England, enrolled at Manchester College of Art, a prestigious place. And he actually worked as a professional art designer after graduating. Which isn't just a side note, is it?
No, not at all. The sources point out how he used those design skills throughout his career. He designed loads of his own album covers.
Which again speaks to that desire for creative control, right? Over the whole package.
Exactly. Total artistic vision.
He did start playing semi-professionally fairly early, though, using that art college network. Back in '56, while still studying, he formed the Powerhouse Four.
Right.
By 1962, he was deep in the local R&B scene with the band Kind of Blues Syndicate. They played the all-nighters at the Twisted Wheel Club in Manchester. Legendary venue.
Ah, the Twisted Wheel. Yeah, but the real turning point, the moment that changed everything, was 1963.
Alexis Korner.
Alexis Korner, often called the father of British blues himself. He saw Mayall, saw the potential, and basically persuaded him, look, you need to move to London. You need to do this full-time.
A big leap of faith.
Huge.
Yeah.
And Korner didn't just advise him. He helped him out, found him gigs, introduced him to that really tight-knit circle of London musicians.
Yeah.
The ones who were about to change everything.
So Mayall makes the move, forms the band, now officially called the Bluesbreakers, starts playing gigs in London, places like the Marquee Club, late '63. And the initial lineup was pretty solid. You had John McVie on bass.
Future Fleetwood Mac, yeah.
And Huey Flint on drums. And they were building credibility fast. I mean, they backed John Lee Hooker on his British tour in '64.
That's a massive endorsement right there, back in Hooker.
But it wasn't all smooth sailing. Those early days were tough. financially.
Oh, yeah. The sources talk about this key moment of commercial failure. Looked like it might derail the whole thing.
The Decca contract.
Exactly. They got a deal with Decca, recorded a live album at Klick in December 64, released a single, Crocodile Walk, and both just bombed. Didn't connect with anyone.
Ouch.
Yeah. Decca terminated the contract. It was a real low point. Mayall could have just packed it in then. But instead, he changed things up.
And thank goodness he did. Because that setback basically leads us right into the definitive era. April 1965. Everything changes. Roger Dean is out on guitar.
And in comes Eric Clapton, fresh from the Yardbirds.
And as one source puts it, Mayall's career suddenly enters its decisive phase.
This is where we really need to look at Mayall's unique role. He wasn't just hiring good players. He was, maybe consciously, maybe not, setting up this kind of world-class finishing school for blues rock guitarists.
That's a great way to put it.
This period, mid to late 60s, it was the perfect environment for these young guys. They could just soak up deep American blues, hone their skills, all anchored by Mayall's incredible knowledge of the music. He knew it inside out.
Okay, let's dive into those legendary lineups then. Starting with Clapton, 65 to 66. This is what gave Mayall his big commercial break, finally. What made that partnership work so well?
Freedom, I think. For Clapton, anyway. You gotta remember, he'd been in the Yardbirds, right? Playing R&B, but under pressure to make pop singles. He felt stifled.
Yeah, he famously hated For Your Love.
Exactly. Mayall basically gave him a license to just play pure, hardcore Chicago blues, no compromises. They cut a couple of tracks for a single, I'm Your Witch Doctor.
Great track.
Then Clapton did this weird runner off to Grease for a bit.
The infamous Glands period.
Yeah, where Peter Green actually filled in temporarily. But Clapton came back in November 65, and that iconic lineup clicked into place.
And the result was the album that everyone points to, Bluesbreakers with Eric Clapton, the Beano album. It's almost mythical how quickly they recorded it. 3 days at Decca Studios, with horns on some tracks, too.
There's 3 days, and it wasn't just a hit. It went to number 6 in the UK charts. It was a landmark. Technically, artistically, it changed the game.
Because of Clapton's guitar sound?
Absolutely. Contemporary magazines like Beat Instrumental were raving about it, describing his playing as having, quote, audacious aggressiveness and molten fluidity.
Molten fluidity, love that.
But here's the technical bit. The sound itself was revolutionary. Clapton was using a Gibson Les Paul, a high-output guitar plugged into a Marshall JTM 45 amp, cranked up, pushing it right to the edge of distortion. British bands just weren't doing that then.
And Mayall encouraged it.
Totally. Apparently, he even turned his own vocals down in the mix sometimes, just to let Clapton's raw, screaming tone cut through.
Wow. That is a sound that launched 1,000 copycats. It was deep blues, too. Covers like Otis Rush's All Your Love, Freddie King's Hideaway.
Yeah, pure Chicago stuff. But also their own songs, like the Mayall-Clapton original Double Crossing Time. And crucially, it's the album where Clapton first sang lead vocals on Robert Johnson's Ramblin' on My Mind.
A pivotal record. But the pattern starts immediately, doesn't it? The talent incubator loses its star pupil.
Right on cue. July 1966, the music papers break the news. Clapton's leaving. He's forming Cream with Jack Bruce and Ginger Baker,
who he'd apparently met after a Mayall gig.
Yeah, the sources say Clapton was a bit embarrassed because he hadn't actually told Mayall directly first. But think about it. Mayall didn't just provide the training ground for Cream. He basically gave them the blueprint, the whole heavy blues rock trio idea.
So how did Mayall handle this constant cycle of finding genius, polishing it, and then watching it walk out the door? Did the press see him as a mentor or just someone getting overshadowed?
That's a really good question. And the sources suggest, well, it was complex. Mayall himself never seemed to panic. He treated it like, okay, this is how it works. We need fresh blood. But it must have been frustrating, surely.
You'd think so.
The press definitely recognized his role as a talent scout. That's where the Godfather nickname came from. But yeah, there was always that undercurrent. His sidemen were becoming bigger stars than he was.
So what was his immediate reaction to Clapton leaving?
Classic Mayall.
Yeah.
No drama. He just went out and found the next guitar genius, Peter Green. Convinced him to come back. The same Peter Green who'd briefly filled in during that Grease trip.
Incredible. So now we're into the Peter Green era, 66 to 67. Almost as productive as the Clapton time, wasn't it? They laid down a lot of tracks.
Around 40 recorded tracks, yeah. The key album here is A Hard Road, released February 67.
Different vibe from Clapton.
Oh, totally. Clapton was all fire and aggression. Green.
Yeah.
He had this incredibly refined, soulful touch, more melodic. It was all about tone and feel, not just volume. The band also did this really important EP with the American blues harp player, Paul Butterfield.
Butterfield Blues Band, huge influence.
Exactly. For people maybe not familiar, Butterfield was massive in the U.S. scene, taking acoustic blues and making it electric, amplified for that Chicago sound. So collaborating with him really showed Mayall wasn't just copying American blues, he was a peer, part of that transatlantic conversation.
Right. But then history repeats itself.
Like clockwork. Soon after A Hard Road comes out, Peter Green leaves, and he takes John McVie with him on bass.
And Mick Fleetwood on drums.
Who had only been a bluesbreaker for a few weeks. Shows Mayall's eye for rhythm section, though.
And together, they form Peter Green's Fleetwood Mac.
Unbelievable, isn't it? That's two of the biggest, most influential bands of the late 60s, Cream and Fleetwood Mac, both born directly out of Mayall's band within about a year.
It's an unparalleled record. Finding that level of talent twice in a row, what did Mayall do this time?
What's really interesting is his reaction to losing Green. Instead of immediately hunting for another guitar hero, he did something very different. He made a personal statement. May 1967, he goes into the studio and records an album called The Blues Alone.
In one day.
One day. And he played most of it himself.
Pretty much everything. All the tracks are just him, except Keith Hartley played drums on about half of them.
Wow.
It was like he was saying to the industry, to the audience, okay, the stars leave, but I'm still here. The music continues. I am the core. It showed he could carry it himself if needed.
A powerful move. Which then leads us, naturally, to the next guitar prodigy. Mick Taylor, 1967 to 69. Taylor was just a kid, right? Only 18. Yeah, barely out of school. Mayall found him through a Musicians Wanted ad in the Melody Maker. Simple as that.
Amazing.
And Mayall, still experimenting, put together a slightly bigger band this time. A six-piece, including saxophones for the first time. They recorded the album Crusade in July 67.
How did Taylor compare to Clapton and Green?
Different again. Taylor had this incredibly fluid, melodic style, very smooth, and he was a fantastic slide player. The band toured like crazy through 67, lots of time abroad. And this led to another one of Mayall's really unique projects, the live album Diary of a Band, Vols 1 and 2.
Yeah, this story is wild. He recorded it all himself, on the road.
Over 60 hours of live tape, on a portable recorder in the late 60s, remember? And then he personally edited the whole thing down himself.
That's insane dedication. The art school designer turned tape editor.
It really shows that self-reliance again, doesn't it? Most bands would have engineers for that. Mayall just did it. Meanwhile, the bass spot was still a bit unstable.
Right, the revolving door.
Paul Williams, Keith Tillman. Then a 15-year-old Andy Frazier, who quickly left to form Free.
Another huge band.
Exactly. Before Tony Reeves finally settled in.
But that instability didn't seem to hurt them commercially. They had another hit album, right? Bare Wires in 68?
Yeah, that one hit number 6 in the UK, too. It was a solid lineup by then with drummer John Heisman and Tony Reeves. But you know it's coming.
The cycle continues. Taylor leaves.
Yep. June 1969. After almost 2 intense years with Mayall, learning the ropes, touring the world, Mick Taylor gets the call to replace Brian Jones in the Rolling Stones.
Good grief. Cream, Fleetwood Mac, Free, the Rolling Stones is just staggering. Mayall was basically the Premier League training academy for British rock royalty.
Couldn't put it better myself. He was the central hub. But okay, so we've covered his massive impact on the British scene. This is where the story takes a really sharp left turn.
Right. He rips up the playbook completely.
Instead of looking for the next guitar god to fit the Bluesbreakers mold, he just walks away from it, abandons the electric British blues sound he helped pioneer.
And moves to L.A.
Moves to Los Angeles. It wasn't just changing countries. It felt like a complete rejection of that high-volume rock scene his former students were now dominating.
So what was the new plan?
A totally new format, lower volume, acoustic instruments, and the really radical part, no drummer.
No drummer. Why? Was that a reaction against the kind of stadium rock bombast?
I think that's a big part of it. The sources suggest it was partly rejection of that loudness, yeah. Maybe also an homage to the acoustic roots guys he loved, like Lead Belly, but updated.
Interesting. More intimate, maybe.
Definitely. Less clutter, forced subtlety. And the musicians he chose reflected this shift. This was the start of the Mark Almond period, 69 into 70.
John Mark on acoustic guitar, Johnny Almond on flute and sax.
Yeah, and Almond's a familiar name. He played baritone sax way back on the Bluesbreakers with Eric Clapton album. Shows Mayall liked bringing back people he trusted.
Right. And this new acoustic band, they debut in the U.S. at the Newport Jazz Festival. That's a pretty big stage.
Huge platform. And the live album, from that time, The Turning Point, recorded at the Fillmore East, plus the studio album, Empty Rooms. They really defined this quieter, very different chapter. A clean break.
But he didn't stick with just acoustic for long, did he? He kept evolving.
No, he kept that no drummer idea for a bit longer, but started blending in electric instruments again, pushing towards more of a jazz fusion sound. He brought in American players.
Okay, who are the key guys in this phase, the USA Union period?
Right, he recruited 2 guys from Canned Heat, Harvey Mandel on guitar, and Larry Taylor on bass.
Canned Heat, wow, proper blues rock royalty.
And the amazing electric violinist Don Sugarcane Harris, who'd played with Frank Zappa's Mothers of Invention.
That's quite a lineup. Different.
Yeah, and they made the albums USA Union and Memories. And what's fascinating is, on USA Union, Mayall apparently made Harvey Mandel, who was known for his feedback and sustained techniques, play without relying on those signature sounds.
So even when he's collaborating with these American heavyweights, Mayall is still firmly in charge, setting the musical direction.
Absolutely. He was the architect.
Yeah.
He wanted their talent, but within the specific structure he was building at that moment. The benevolent dictator of the blues, maybe?
I like that. But then, after all this experimentation, he does something huge in 1971. The Back to the Roots project.
Ah, yes. This was massive. A big double album, kind of looking back, bringing together loads of his most famous collaborators.
Sounds like the ultimate class reunion.
It really was. It cemented his position as the guy who connected everyone. You had Eric Clapton back, Mick Taylor, Harvey Mandel, Sugarcane Harris, Johnny Allman, Keith Hartley, Jerry McGee on guitar too.
Wow, British 60s meets American 70s.
Exactly, a real melting pot. And Mayall worked tirelessly on it. Wrote all the songs, played harmonica, guitar, keyboards, drums, percussion. He was all over it. The London sessions with Clapton and Taylor were apparently quite something. Some of Clapton's last recordings before he really went into his shell after the Domino's Layla sessions fizzled out.
So after that huge reunion album, the sources seem to suggest Mayall had kind of done his main job for the British scene, and he settles into life in LA full-time. This kicks off his American phase through the 70s, which often gets overlooked.
Yeah, it does get glossed over, but it was like 15 years of constant work. He recorded for different American labels, kept changing his style. A lot of the music from that decade brought in jazz, funk, even pop elements. He even used female vocalists, which was a big shift for his sound.
Any key albums from that time we should know?
Well, there was Jazz Blues Fusion in '72, which does what it says on the tin. The latest edition in '74 featured the great jazz sax player Red Holloway. He was really exploring.
So he wasn't just trading on his Godfather of British blues reputation. He was actively engaging with what was happening in the U.S. scene.
Definitely. Always moving, always experimenting. Although there was one interesting exception towards the end of the 70s, an album called The Last of the British Blues in '78.
Ah, the title says it all.
Yeah, it was a live album, and it was a deliberate, brief return to that earlier electric blues rock sound.
Yeah.
Almost like closing a chapter or acknowledging where he came from before moving on again.
Now, before we leave the 70s, we have to mention that awful event in 1979, the fire.
Oh, the Laurel Canyon brush fire. Devastating. It just destroyed his house.
And the loss. It wasn't just the house, was it?
No, it was incredible, personally and historically. The sources list what he lost. 2,000 hours of video movies he'd collected, priceless 16th century antiques, and 25 years of his personal diaries.
25 years, just gone.
Think about that. All his notes, thoughts, experiences covering the move to London, the Bluesbreakers lineups, Clapton, Green, Taylor, the move to America, everything from '54 to '79, wiped out.
It's unimaginable. So much history lost. It really highlights how much we rely on the music itself and interviews to piece his story together. Okay, moving into the later years. We see Mayall kind of consolidate things and finally start getting the recognition he deserved right, starting with bringing back the Bluesbreakers name.
Well, there was a brief reunion tour first in '82. That got Mick Taylor, John McVie, and drummer Colin Allen back together for a couple of years. That sort of paved the way.
Right.
Then in 1984, the Bluesbreakers name was officially back, properly restored after, nearly 15 years on the shelf.
And the new lineup was interesting. 2 lead guitars, Walter Trout and Coco Montoya.
Yeah, that twin guitar attack defined the band through the 80s and into the early 90s, when Buddy Whittington eventually took over as the sole lead guitarist. It felt like Mayall was consciously going back to that high-energy electric sound he'd left behind in '69.
He'd done the experimenting, now it was back to the core brand, maybe.
Perhaps.
Yeah.
And this historical importance really started to get cemented with some big anniversary projects. For his 40th anniversary as a pro in 2001, there was the album Along for the Ride.
Credited to John Mayall and friends.
Exactly. It was a real celebration. 20 guests, old Bluesbreakers side by side with people like Gary Moore, Steve Miller, Otis Rush, Billy Gibbons from ZZ Top.
Wow, quite the guest list. A statement of respect across generations.
Totally. And that continued. For his 70th birthday in 2003, he put on that big Unite for UNICEF concert in Liverpool.
That must have been incredible. Didn't Clapton and Mick Taylor both play?
They did. Clapton, Taylor, and the jazz legend Chris Barber were special guests. Imagine that. Two of his most famous guitar protégés on stage with him. Peter Green couldn't make it, sadly, but still. What a moment.
Captured on DVD, too, thankfully.
Yeah, that moment is preserved. But Mayall, ever the pragmatist, eventually decided to retire the Bluesbreakers name again in 2008.
Why was that?
He said he needed to simplify things, reduce the workload, and maybe wanted the freedom to work with different musicians without the weight of expectation that came with the Bluesbreakers tag.
Makes sense.
So he started touring just under his own name, with a really solid, consistent backing band. Often Greg Rezab on bass, Jay Davenport on drums, but let him just focus on playing.
And even late in his career, he was still finding new talent, wasn't he? Bringing in Carolyn Wonderland on guitar.
Yeah, in 2018, his first female lead guitarist. He was 85 years old and still shaking things up, looking for the best players, challenging norms. Says a lot about him.
It really does. And this later period from around 2013 onwards was important for his recorded legacy too, wasn't it? Working with 40 Below Records.
Yes, that collaboration with producer Eric Corner was key. It resulted in 4 new studio albums, like Talk About That, which had Joe Walsh guesting.
Nice.
But just as importantly, that label did the vital work of properly remastering and releasing those old live recordings from the crucial mid-60s period.
Yeah.
The live in 1967 volumes.
Finally getting good quality recordings of the Peter Green era out there.
Exactly. Making sure that sound, the sound that launched Fleetwood Mac, was properly documented and available.
And alongside the music, the official honors started rolling in too. He got an OBE in 2005.
Officer of the Order of the British Empire, yep. And then, as we said right at the start, the ultimate nod, induction into the Rock and Roll Hall of Fame in 2024. Musical influence category.
A long time coming, many would say.
Perhaps, but fitting. He passed away peacefully at home in California, July 22nd, 2024. 90 years old. Lived an incredibly full life dedicated to the blues. Married twice, 6 kids, 6 grandkids. His second wife, Maggie, was a blues singer herself and helped manage him. Music was just woven into the fabric of his entire life. He's interred at Hollywood Forever Cemetery.
So looking back over this immense career, nearly 70 years, from playing R&B in Manchester clubs to global tours in his 80s, Mayall's legacy is just unique, isn't it?
It really is. His importance isn't just his own music, though, with over 40 studio albums. That's a massive body of work in itself.
Great.
But it's also, maybe even more so, his unbelievable knack for spotting, nurturing, and then launching generation-defining talent.
He was the connector, the central point for that whole British blues rock family tree.
Exactly. A constant force in a scene that was constantly changing, often because of the people he'd found and trained. And his own adaptability. Incredible. From art school to electric blues pioneer, then that radical acoustic shift in L.A., then jazz fusion. He was never content to just stand still, always chasing a new sound.
Which brings us to a really interesting final thought, I think. We know he provided the platform for Cream for Fleetwood Mac. He was the finishing school for Clapton, Green, Taylor. We've established that. But given his own constant drive for change, his move to the U.S. to experiment for over a decade with sounds way beyond traditional blues, where does his deepest influence actually lie? Is it more in the megastars he launched onto the world stage? Or is it in his own relentless, decades-long personal quest for new sounds, pushing the boundaries of blues itself?
That's a great question. Was he the launchpad or the lifelong explorer?
Yeah.
Or somehow both?
Something for you to think about next time you hear a classic Clapton lick or a Fleetwood Mac track, or even one of Mayall's own incredibly diverse recordings. Where did that energy ultimately make the biggest waves?